let me ask you along those lines about Rudy Giuliani, who is a major focal point of the book, I think with very good reason. It's, to me, Giuliani is such an interesting figure in this regard because he was elected to the mayoralty in New York as a Republican. A very Democratic city elected him largely on the strength of his reputation as this kind of, hallmark and paragon of probity. He was a prosecutor, stood up to mafia and Wall Street fraudsters, somebody who just really couldn't stand corruption, would put people in jail no matter how powerful they were. That was the branding that led him to become New York mayor. And of course, he turned into a hero after 9/11. Like probably the person who benefited most from 9/11 politically was Rudy Giuliani because of how he handled it, because of his presence as New York mayor. And he had this, sterling reputation that he began to monetize very, very aggressively. He became a very wealthy person as a result of that. Even so, I think it took people a while to realize it because of the buildup of this branding, that in so many ways, and I think it's part of the reason why you put his name in the title of the book, he kind of, at some point, became morphed into kind of the face of the DC swamp corruption, of having dealings with foreign influence rings or foreign leaders or foreign groups to peddle influence in Washington. What do you think happened that propelled him on that trajectory? And why do you find him such an important representation of what you're writing about?
Well, two things I think propelled him on the trajectory. Number one is he had financial problems. He was, despite the fact that he was collecting these huge paydays from overseas, he had a very expensive lifestyle. He got embroiled in very expensive and bitter divorce proceedings with his second wife, and he was sort of out of money. And at the same time, his sort of relevance, his fame was diminishing the further and further we got from 9/11. So he was becoming sort of a marginal figure. And what happened that sort of helped reverse, at least temporarily, both those trajectories was Donald Trump, with whom he had this long relationship going back to their time together in the sort of 1980s tabloid go-go New York milieu. And he was a very early supporter of Trump. He stuck with him even when, as I was alluding to in earlier, a lot of people turned their backs on him as he became increasingly controversial headed into the election. And he thought that he was going to become Secretary of State. I mean, he openly campaigned for it, and he said that, similar to what Kushner and Witkoff said, he said that his experience working for sometimes these unsavory foreign regimes was actually a strength because he knew how the world worked and he was familiar with geopolitics. Well, he didn't get it, partly because some of the more legacy people around Trump, including Chris Christie, who was involved in the first transition, thought that his foreign work would actually be a liability and would prevent him from getting confirmed by the Senate. So what did he do? He sort of refashioned his role as a shadow Secretary of State, where he continued to reap these even larger paydays because everyone around the world knew he had the ear of the president of the United States. And at the same time, he was whispering in Trump's ear about these tricky foreign policy issues that did implicate his clients or his business partners around the world. And that allowed him for a time to be both relevant and to renew his earning power. Of course, it ended disastrously even before January 6th in the way that caused legal liability for him. It backfired in the form of the first impeachment of Trump when he was whispering in Trump's ear about Ukraine, where he was doing business and trying to do business and getting Trump to exert pressure on Zelensky to try to unearth dirt about Hunter Biden and the Bidens in a way that, again, backfired spectacularly. So Rudy, I thought, was an interesting character because of his role in sort of pioneering this type of shadow foreign policy during the first Trump administration. And even now, he's still doing a little bit of it, even as he is diminished. But still, an influential character, at least during the first Trump administration, that I thought was worth putting some spotlight on.
Yeah, for me, it's just such a kind of a lesson about the endless capacity of human beings to fall prey to greed. I mean, the fact that he was so widely admired and could have built a very good life, of admiration and success based on that, but instead became so addicted to, more and more wealth and consumption as his primary source of self-esteem, to the point where he fell prey to, all the worst elements in Washington. And it kind of is a lesson about Washington as well, to the point where he's now basically fighting off a bankruptcy court and begging to keep a few of his World Series rings and maybe like a car. It's such a sad story, but kind of a testament to the swamp that Trump was talking about, but himself seems to have fallen prey to.